Hello, good evening and welcome. It's that time of the year where the budget story starts coming out, and the 2014 budget is just round the corner. And snippets of it are coming out again. And something that's different about it this year is that the government is saying that they are going to target money to performance. So if they gave you money, you should tell us exactly who you are paying, what they are doing, and what is expected of them. Before 2015, you present your budget for more money. Now, one would think, so all these years that monies are being doled out, what was the motive of money being doled out? However, as someone said, it's better late than never. So it's here with us. But we're here to discuss and find out how exactly it's going to work. Will join me on the phone later is Patrick Numo, who's the Director for Budget in the Ministry of Finance. He'll join us on the phone later. But with me in studio is Paul Frimpong, who's a Chartered Economist, a policy analyst with Economic Business Group of Africa. My brothers, welcome, have a good discussion. But I want an education on budget.
Sure.
We need to find out what exactly is budget, who informs it, how do they even come about it, and that's what we're going to talk today. My name is Nana Asakwa, and this is PM Express. Well, hello and welcome back. In with a new budget and away with the old ways. And why not? I mean, if you're a taxpayer, then you expect that the monies that the state takes from you is going to a sector or a department who are going to use it judiciously and account for it, rather than just take it and then come back next year and take it. But I just want to go all the way back. As I introduced him earlier, Paul Frimpong is a Chartered Economist, policy analyst, and he's with Economic Business Group Africa. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Paul, ever since we're growing up, all we hear budget, budget, budget. We're going to break it down into layman terms. Now, what informs a budget? So it's the beginning of the year, when the finance minister will always come with figures and this and this and that. How does he come about that figure?
Anna, good evening to your cherished viewers. I think you are right on that. We have this issue of budget year in and year out. And people begin to wonder and ask questions as to what is this budget thing about at all? And really, the budget seems to be the quantitative expression of what we intend doing as an economy or as a country in terms of our expenditure and our revenue. Okay, so that is basically about the budget. So in a way, as a country, before we go out there to buy anything or we spend on anything, we should have beforehand what money we are actually getting at the end of the day. You understand? So that we'll be able to determine the kind of thing we want to spend our money on. Okay. So the question then comes as to how do we then identify those things that we want to spend our money on? And how do we even mobilize those money at the end of the day? Okay. So the question is, what informs our finance minister to be able to come out with the figures that we always hear or watch him read it in the parliament? Okay, I'm not talking about this particular finance minister or finance minister in the history of this country. How do they come about the figures that they attach to the various expenditure that we have as a country? Mm-hmm. Okay, and that is where we need to look at it. Now, if you are coming out with a budget, okay, we need to have first-hand information. Okay, so as an economy, this quarter, how much are we supposed to spend? Okay, mm-hmm. And that's going to be based on our developmental agenda, the priority that we set for that quarter. So if we're able to determine that this quarter of the year we spend 30 million Ghana cedis, then the question begins to be asked, what are the very things that the 30 million will be spent on in that quarter and under consideration. Okay, so we're able to identify those things within that quarter under consideration. Then we can lay our hands on a very flexible, a very feasible budget at the end of the day. So I think those are the issues that we look at, the very things in that budget in a particular period that we want to spend our money on. Based on that, we're able to know the right figures for the budget.
Well, I mean, there's a lady in Ekropon that always sees you and I was like, you take 50 pesos, take 50 pesos. And I says, no, I'm not going to take 50 pesos because they read the budget, so now you have to give me 1 cedi. Everybody then also has this idea that once the budget is read, then prices have to be reviewed upwards. Is it the norm, or can prices be reviewed downwards?
Surely, the economy progresses, you understand. In the course of the year, you realize that inflation will take its course. So basically, things are going to go up a bit. The budget necessarily do not have a correlation with the increase in the prices or people's demand for increase in income from one way or the other. Okay, the budget has no relation with that. But the notion is that we are beginning a new year. Okay, the budget has been read. People can maybe they listen to the radio, listen to experts speaking on the budget and say, the government plans to spend 40 billion above what the government spent last year. So with that information, people might think that there's going to be a huge chunk of money coming to the system next year. So please, whatever I'm taking now has to also go up. Okay, so that's the notion about the budget and people's demand for increasing income or wages or all those aspects of it. Yeah.
Okay, now the other thing that I wonder, and you're talking about the minister, projecting that I'm going to spend 30 million here or spend 30 million there. Now, we don't, as a culture, have a good, solid database or keep records. Even if I asked social welfare, how many disabled children are in school, give me a number, they don't have it. If I went to, Ministry of Health, how many babies were born today, we don't have it. How many kids are in school? So we don't have all these records. So based on what information will the minister come out and say, I'm spending 30 million on education, I'm spending this on agric, I'm spending that here? Because even if I said, how many subsistence farmers are doing corn plantation, agric ministry won't be able to give me that record. So what information goes into that amount that we say in the parliament?
See, now, that's where the issue comes to play of our budget deficit year in and year out. Because we are not able to place our hands on the right figures, okay, to be put into the budget. So at the end of the day, we might project 30 million Ghana cedi to be spent within the year. We realize that we will go beyond that. Okay, budget deficit in itself is not bad, which of course we'll deal with it later. Okay, so we are looking at how we're able to come up with the accurate figures, concise, precise. Even there will be a deviation, it will not be that enormous as we've been seeing over the period. Okay, so that means there must be a lot of work to be done on the ground. Okay, where are you going to identify the people to know the trend? Okay, to be able to determine the amount of money to be spent on such people or on such a sector. Okay, so data mobilization is very, very critical. You don't have any source of data to be able to give us that concise or precise figure that we need in the budget. Because as an economy like Ghana, we need to be very, very specific in whatever we spend our money on. We can't just be making any projection as we've been seeing over the period. When we do that, we are leading to a disaster that we might not even think of going through. You understand? So I think the data collection to be able to help us to get a precise or concise figures must be the agenda. Okay, so the finance ministry, together with all stakeholders who are involved in the budget preparation, of course, it rests on the finance ministry to come up with the right figures. Okay, so I will be in my office or I'll be in the house, and I'm expecting that And this money that the finance ministry is saying that the government is going to spend at the end of the day, and this is the actual money. And so what is my percentage in it? How much am I supposed to contribute to this figure? Okay, so at the end of the day, we don't run on the budget deficit I've been seeing over the period.
Paul, I'm going to take a break here, and then when I come back, we shall continue. Again, it ties down to, everybody's talking about identification because we have too many multiple identifications. Should we put all our energies to try and streamline people so we can widen the tax net and reduce the budget? Who knows? We're coming straight back.
But if you have a program, and you are monitoring the program, and you are not monitoring just the activities of the program, but the results that the programs are expected to deliver, then you will have a more focused monitoring system that looks at the expected results, whether we are making progress towards them, and what the obstacles are.
You are moving from activity to programs. Instead of looking at activities, you want to see outcomes, crime management, reducing crime management. So all the activities that are connected should be funded properly. And if it's cross-cutting, the sector ministers must meet to make sure that they give the resources. Nothing here tells me that all our problems are going to be solved. So we should not believe that. We are just moving from first gear to another first gear.
If we're going to give ministers more discretion in the release of funds, and even to amend their programs for the year, isn't that going to provide more room for chop, corruption, create loot and share?
A road project that lasts for 4 years. Under this project budget, they are not going to look at the activities. They wait till the road is finished. So how is Parliament then going to measure the activity if it's not part of the program-based budget? Mr. Speaker, I hope this is not an avenue that is being developed by technocrats to our smart politicians.
Let me just assure members that within every program there are activities, and therefore the activities can continue to be monitored. The oversight of Parliament will always be there. All that we are saying is that resources will now be allocated to conform with programs within which there are activities which can be monitored. But it is also part of the budget element of the GIFNI system, which will be which has been launched this year, but will be fully implemented next year, so that we have next year by now.
Well, Paul, I was going to ask. Actually, welcome back. I was going to ask you if we sort of had a proper identification system so that we didn't have multiple identities, how would that help the budget? But before I even go there, I just want us to respond to what we saw in Parliament. There's busily debating on a new formula for the 2014 budget. Now, in the 2013 budget, I'm sure you have the numbers. What was the target then?
Thank you very much. I am looking at it and I'm just wondering, this new program-based budget for 2014, really what is the case? Is it the name that has been changed, or is it really something critical in there which has been changed and that we are not going to see the recurrent budget deficit we've been seeing over the period? If that is the case, then that is really good. Because from the finance minister, Mr. Setepe, it really means that money will be attached to programs, specific program, and the import of that is to be able to measure performance, and the budget itself will be very, very flexible to implement. Performance can be measured. That is what the program-based budget is seeking to do. Mm-hmm. And that lent about $1.7 million has been used to really come up with a software to cater for this program-based budget.
Software is a budget on its own.
A budget on its own. You see,
you need a whole budget for the software.
Need a budget of over 1.7 million for the budget software alone. So we're now coming to the substantive budget, really. But I think the budget for 2013, basically we have to set a target. Okay, we have this money in our coffers, or we are anticipating to get this money into our coffers. So we want to spend this money on this and on that. So we need to set a target to be able to measure our performance. So what will be our GDP target for the year? What will be the level of inflation for the year? Okay, what will be the debt to GDP ratio at the end of the year? Okay, so if we are able to go by what is stated in the budget and meet this target, then we'll be making headway. Okay, but if we state that we want to have inflation around 6.9% at the end of 2013, and as of now, November 2013, last time I checked, we are hovering around 11 point something percent inflation. That is a complete deviation from the objective that we set for ourselves as a country. Understand? So we set the target for the year to be able to measure performance. But clearly, we are missing the point totally. We are not able to go or measure according to that target that we set for ourselves.
I mean, you are an economist, so I mean, normally, if, let's say, maybe it's too layman, but, in this show we ask layman questions. I gave, my boy a patch of land to weed, maybe, 10 by 10 meters. And I come back and he's unable to weed it. So we need to set a realistic target. So this time we're going to do it 15 by 15. I mean, do you then have to reduce it to get to your target, or do you increase it to reach your target? But let me just inform viewers that we were supposed to speak to Patrick Nomo, who's the director for budget, the Ministry of Finance, but his lines are busy. And we're still trying. When we get him, maybe we hear the government side of things, but at the moment we're hearing the analyst side of things. If we are unable to achieve the target we set for 2013, should we let it maintain that, listen, unless we're able to achieve it, we're not going to come up with any, fancy more figures. Let's hold it until we can achieve it. Or do we say, oh no, forget it, we were able to achieve 5, so now we want to move to 10. I mean, how does it work?
No, we can't really do that. I mean, if we are a serious country, and I know we are a serious country, we can't really gamble on that issue, that we set, say, inflation at 6.9% for 2013. We knew that we were not going to be able to achieve it and still go by 6.9. Come what may, we are going to achieve 6.9. In a way, give us the edge to do more. You understand? That is fantastic. But economically, it doesn't make sense. Why do I say this? We need to be specific as possible. We need to be concise on what we think we can achieve as a country before we go for them. Okay? So if you set an inflation rate of 5% for the year under review, and at the end of the day, you come up with about 10% inflation rate, that was a complete deviation from the target that you set. And it doesn't make economic sense in any way possible. No matter the justification you give me, it does not make an economic sense. It means that resources have gone waste in that period under review. And so you can't come back and tell me that I should give you the same amount again to tell me you're going to get this target, the same target again at the end of the day. I will not accept that. So we cannot and should not accept anything of that sort. If we say we are targeting 5%, even if there's going to be a deviation, it should be a normal deviation. Okay, so you set a target of 5% and you get 5.5 or less, below 5, like around 4.5, that will be acceptable. Okay, so I think that's where we should look at it from.
We've had instances of oil revenue drop, gold prices dropped, and so the monies that they were expecting to get from these sectors never came in. How much of the hole will they plug to make this excuse relevant?
I think there's simple accounting 101, I should say. Really, you've set a target for the year. Okay, you are anticipating to get this amount of money from this side. So based on that, you've made your expenditure projection on that amount of money which is coming in. Okay, so if in the course of your activities, you do not realize that anticipated amount of money, what do? You need to come back and look at your expenditure table, restructure it, take some of the things out, so you'll be able to live within your means. Okay, if you are supposed to get 10 million from the commodities market through your export, okay, and the end of the day you get 5 million, okay, and maybe prior to that you've increased your expenditure from, let's say, up to a level of about 7 million. It means you have a surplus of 3 million. Okay, year comes, you're not able to get the 10 million target. You had 5 million, and yet you even went beyond your 7 million expenditure target to about 12 million. It doesn't make sense. Okay, so we need to live within our means. Okay, so that is where we should look at it.
That is the $1 million question, isn't it? Again, my first question was that how do you project or know that, listen, I need to spend $300,000 on education? Before you do that, then you know exactly how many girls are in school, how many boys are in school, where they are in school, and how much. You have to have all these figures. Yeah. And one way of finding these figures is if we are all identified within one means, sort of. Because, you and I know there are people who live in Ghana who have no identification whatsoever unless they are about to go and vote. Or if they are fortunate and the uncle says, oh, come to Abu Street and you go and find a birth certificate. Would it not be prudent for 2014 budget to say, listen, we are going to spend a whole chunk to narrow us down to this, to make future projections more, so that we fall in line? Because otherwise we'll just be doing guesswork.
Yeah, I think that's the question that we try to tackle in first instance. That how do we come up with the realistic figures for the various sectors in the budget at the end of the day? Because the money is to be spent on those sectors. So if we don't make accurate projection on those sectors, trust me, at the end of the day, you're going to fail. No matter how low the target is, which it might be very easy to achieve, you will still fall short on that same small target that you set for yourself. Okay, so let's say education, for instance, as you said, how much do we need to spend on education? So that the finance minister will not come to the parliament and say we need 2 million Ghana cedi to finance our education. What is the justification for that 2 million? Is it too high or too low? Okay, so if it's too high, why is it that the 2 million is above what is actually expected to be spent on education? If it's too low, how do you think we are going to move forward as a country? If we are spending such a low amount of money on our education, on our human resources. Okay, so if the tough question is being asked, that is this amount realistic enough for that sector that you've chosen? Okay, so if there's no answer to the fact that yes, I've gone to the ground, I have access to the information, I know the trend, I know the trend of expenditure of the various schools under the government radar. Okay, so every month, this is the amount of money we need if we want to progress education from, let's say, 2% to 5% in terms of percentage. Okay, so every month, this is how much we need to spend on our education to be able to get this target. Every quarter, this is how much we need to spend on education. In the 6 months, which is the half year, this is how much we need to spend on education to get to this level. So it has to start from the micro level, okay, from small quantity like that, from monthly, quarterly, and then half year. And we know that indeed this figure is really accurate. It shouldn't be just a simple projection. We just sit somewhere, we conjure figures, we put into words, English, we present, we make noise about it, and goes to sleep. Nothing's done about it. And next time we come to Parliament, begging for extra money, or we complaining about sectors being deteriorating day in and day out. And that shouldn't be the real case for this country.
When was the last time we balanced our budget?
I can't really place my hands on. If we're running deficits throughout, deficit. I want to say something on the deficit. Deficit in itself is not bad. Okay, when a country runs a budget or a company runs a budget, it's not really bad. But actually, the question has to be asked us: how was the money spent to be able to realize or to be able to arrive at this deficit? Okay, and when it comes to the macroeconomic level, okay, you're looking at recurrent expenditure and you have capital expenditure. So the recurrent expenditure has got to do with the likes of salaries of workers, wages here and there, those that we spend within a short space of time, okay? And then we also look at the capital expenditure, okay? And a country like Ghana, as part of the emerging economy, that is where our priorities should really lie, in the capital expenditure aspect. And on that side, we are looking at infrastructure development in terms of education, our health sector, okay? When you're able to develop the infrastructure of the economy, we're looking at in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years, in the next 20 years. It has a ripple effect than a one-time recurring expenditure. Just spend the money and the whole thing goes off. Let's take 2012 as, for example, where we had a high budget deficit in the history of the country, as you say. Okay, about 60% of the revenue, which was realized at the end of the day, was spent on worker salary. Okay, that is not wrong. But let's see how many people are working in that public sector, which are able to account for about 60% of our budget, okay, which has caused us to run this high budget deficit at the end of the day. Okay, so when you talk about budget deficit, we are looking at how the money was spent, actually, how the money was spent, either on recurrent expenditure or capital expenditure.
The other thing is 2014 budget is based on employment. Yeah. And I mean, you're an economist. Employment comes with energy, or energy in excess, then you have your employment coming. Unless you're going to make shoe shine boys and truck pushers, or I don't know, you somehow need energy. I don't see any chunk of the budget going towards some massive energy revolution. So, I mean, where would that employment come from? I mean, how does it work?
Of course, definitely we need energy to be able to boost our employment sector. Let's say the government is planning on an energy revolution exercise. Okay, so we are going to target certain amounts to the energy sector to be able to develop it. Okay, let's say 2013 budget, for instance, 2014 budget is yet to be read, so we know how much money is actually going to the energy sector. Okay. And let's see the ripple effect of the energy sector. When it dwindles, what effect does it have on the economy in terms of job creation? Okay, industries depend on a constant, regular supply of energy to be able to expand their capacity in terms of their production. Okay, if industries are in position, okay, to be able to expand their productive capacity, then we can boost off a booming employment opportunity to be available. Okay, because when industry wants to increase their productive capacity, it means there's more room for more hands. Okay, so more people can enter the job market at the end of the day. But here is the case that we have our normal doomso. Just of course of late, if it's a bit stabilized and we are all happy, let's hope that it doesn't occur again. Though some part of the country they are still experiencing it. Okay, so if business are not able to have access to that constant supply, they'll either have to maintain the same level of production or has to cut down their productive capacity. And that is going to cripple the chances of opening up the workspace for more employment.
Paul, I'll take another break here, and then when I come back, I'm still trying to get hold of Patrick Nomo, Director of Budget, Ministry of Finance, so he can explain to us, how some of these technicalities are going to work. But we're discussing, the new budget in and then away with the old ways. Why not? Everybody wants the new way, where monies that are allocated to government departments and agencies would be tagged to how much results they're going to yield. And that's what you bring to the table next year to get more money. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. We're discussing the new budget format, which says away with the old ways and in with the new ways. And one of the people behind this new idea is the Director of Budget himself, Patrick Nomo. Hello, he's joined us on the show now. Hello, Patrick.
Hello.
Very well. Thanks a lot. We're asking so many questions, but obviously I knew you were a bit tied up, so you could not answer. But let's launch straight into it. Now, you're saying the new budget will be tagged to performance.
Hello? The line is not very clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very clear. Can you hear me? Is it not good enough?
It can be better.
Hello? Hello, Patrick.
Yeah.
Any better now?
Yeah, it's better.
Good. Well, Patrick, we're discussing the budget for 2014 and the new format where it will be tagged to performance. And we're just wondering, if you gave money out to, let's say, Sojamine district towards agric, what do you then do? Produce 5 more tons of maize before you come back for the next one? How is it going to be tagged?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. What we are doing is to try to tie the budget allocation to performance and to programs. So what we are saying that we, instead of allocating resources to activities, we are allocating resources to clearly defined programs that have defined outcomes, so that we will be able to derive indicators and targets that will help us monitor what the budget is able to deliver. And so we will be looking at what we are expecting to deliver, what we are expecting to produce in terms of results with the resources that are tied to the programs, as opposed to just carrying out activities that may not yield the desired results.
I may ask, so previously, what would have been the culture? Just take the money and go and then come back next year and take some more?
Not necessarily. There are accountability structures within the system. I mean, that ensure that when you got budgetary allocations, there are structures that ensure that when you are carrying out activities, you account to your superiors. I mean, at the end of the period, there's an audit. I mean, there are reviews to find out what you were able to do. But we are saying that the budget process can also help the process of accountability by requesting receivers of budgetary allocation to agree upfront at the time of budgetary allocation and resource allocation to what specific outputs are going to be delivered, what specific outcomes are going to should be expected. And these should be measurable targets against which we can measure performance when resources have been used. In the past, we tried to measure activities. Have you carried out the activity? Yes. I mean, you have done well. But we are saying that, yes, you carried out the activity. Did the activity contribute towards a predefined outcome and some results? I mean, then we will determine whether the activity you carried out has been useful or it has not been useful.
I see. But, Patrick, I'm going to go back and find out, without a good database system, and we don't have a culture of database, how do you come up with how much money should be allocated to A or B or this sector or that sector, since they don't have concrete data? Even if I said, give me money for all disabled girls in preparatory school, nobody can give me that number. So how much money then do you put to that sector to go and help that group of people?
The good thing is that we are already allocating resources. So we are already allocating resources for education, for health delivery, for agricultural development, for various sectors.
Patrick, we know. I'm just saying that how much do you know that you're not giving too much or too little, since there's no concrete data?
The data is built over a period. So even with the activity-based budget system that we have built up, institutions, ministries, departments, and agencies have developed databases and are monitoring activities. So it's not like we don't have any data at all. The only introduction, or the only new thing we are adding is that the data that already existed, that we know that school enrollment is at a certain level. We know that we have a certain number of doctors in the system that are attending to a certain number of patients that go to our hospitals. We know that we have deficiencies in our fishery system. What we are saying is that at a time when we are making allocations for budgetary purposes, we should ask the question, how many more children are we going to enroll by making this allocation to the health sector? We should ask ourselves, how is the allocation going to influence health service delivery? Are we going to provide more access to patients? Are we going to improve the quality of patients, and by what percentages or by what numbers? As we put money into fisheries development, we should ask ourselves, how is that resource going to change the fisheries delivery system? So that, yes, data is there. We may have deficiencies. It may not be perfect. But with the available data, we should be able to interrogate what we expect to achieve at a time when we allocate resources.
But is that not the danger? It's not perfect. How imperfect is it? By 2%, 3%, by 10%? What's the margin of error? We could go on about the statistics, about the margin of error. I mean, for instance, as a population, we have an estimate of our population. We annually have an estimate of our GDP. We estimate our GDP growth based on our information on all the sectors. We know the number of people that we enroll. I mean, we could go on as whether that figure is accurate or not, but we want to say that for the purposes of allocating resources, we want to see clearly what shift are we going to make, even if the data is inaccurate. What improvement are we going to bring? I mean, in the particular sector in which we are making an allocation. Patrick, so
when we measure this by, well thought out indicators, then we'll be able to be sure that at least we are contributing towards some improvement in the system rather than just carrying out activities.
Patrick, almost every budget that is presented, not by this government, all throughout history, by the end of the year, sometimes even not before the end of the year, the minister has to come back begging for more money because whatever he projected, he's falling short. Could that not be because the projections that they made or the data that they have is, so much out of sync?
Not necessarily. You see, when we prepare budgets based on a number of considerations, projections of expected revenue, which is based on projection of growth within the system, economic activity within industry and other sectors. So if those activities are challenged as a result of anything, be it internal or external, then you have challenges with your resource inflow and therefore the amount of spending that you can do.
But,
yes, so
Patrick, sometimes
it's not unusual to go back to Parliament, midway through the year or sometime during the course of the year to ask for revisions to the estimates that were made. It is not unusual at all.
I agree, but sometimes when you go for a revision of 2% more, 3% more, but sometimes you go for like 10, 20% more, is it not too way out of budget?
Yes, these are fundamental challenges that we've had over the years, and we are trying to correct this. For instance, we have always linked some of our key policy decisions, like, for instance, wage negotiations, which is a very significant part of our budget. If wage negotiations are not done and concluded before
what negotiations, please?
Wage negotiations, negotiation of salaries.
Okay, wage negotiations. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Wages form a significant part of our budget. So if wage negotiations are not concluded before the budget, then if the negotiations are concluded after the budget, you can expect that will throw your that may throw your estimates out of gear, and you may have to go back to Parliament for appropriate adjustment to the budget estimate.
The projections that we made for 2013 budget for inflation, for GDP growth and all that, how much are we out of sync by?
Very soon we'll produce the estimated end of year figures and the position as at September. For all of us to get that information.
Are we really out or are we close?
Let's just have patience until we get the figures out, and then we'll be able to analyze how close we are.
The reason why I asked that question is that I just wanted to find out what will give us hope that, good, now 2014, away with the old, and definitely there's something new coming that we should all have hope for. Otherwise, we're going to say, oh yes, come November 2014, Patrick and his crew is going to come back to Parliament telling us the same thing that, oh, inflation, we missed our target. GDP, we missed our target. Can you help us with more money?
Like I said, you see, when it comes to fiscal management, I mean, and fiscal consolidation, what we have set ourselves is a medium-term framework. I mean, it is always unrealistic to expect that, I mean, challenges that you have had over a number of years can be resolved in just 1 year. Mm-hmm. So, yes, we are not promising that come 2014, all our problems will be solved. No, I don't think anybody can promise you that. What we are saying is that we should begin to take the right steps towards ensuring that when we allocate resources, we expect some results to come with the allocation of the resources. We are not saying we now have enough resources to do all the things that we have to do. But we are saying that with the little that we have, I mean, let's be able to demonstrate that with the little resources that we have put into the system, we were able to achieve A, B, and C, which we set out to achieve. And if we are not able to achieve them, we are able to explain clearly why we couldn't achieve them. The significant thing about the change from activity-based budgeting to a program-based budgeting is that it helps us to institutionalize the medium-term framework that we set out to do, and to ensure that we don't set out to just carry out activities. So that in the midst of limited resources, we have to take the critical decisions as to which programs we will undertake and which results we want to see, as opposed to spreading our resources very thinly and not able to achieve anything substantial in any of the activities that we carry out. Yes, one benefit that we can bring on board is one of clear priorities that are set right at the onset, very tough decisions that determines what can be done and what cannot be done. And when those decisions are taken, pursuing the programs that have been put in the front burner and making sure that they deliver expected results to our people.
Thank you, Patrick. But one of the clear decisions you made on the 2014 budget is employment. It has to be employment-based. Now, you and I know that with the energy deficiency, employment becomes a challenge. So how are you, going to work around that? As I explained in my earlier submission, 2013 has been a very challenging year for us. I mean, the energy crisis that we thought would be over earlier in the year, continued, into the latter part of this year. And that certainly affects industry and so many other sectors of the economy. So that you are not able to deliver the level of activity that will stimulate the type of results that you expected. And that is why we are saying that, going into the future, we'll select programs carefully and expect that these programs will achieve some specified results, so that we are not looking at what we are doing and the activities we are carrying out, but we are looking at the results that the activities we are carrying out will achieve. No, but if we are not boosting energy, where is the employment coming from?
Harry?
I said, if we don't boost energy, where would the employment come from?
You said, where would the employment come from?
Yeah, because 2014 budget is employment focused. If we don't increase industries and stuff.
2013.
No, 2014. The new.
Why are you assuming that the budget? We have not read the budget yet. Are you predicting what we'll be focusing on?
Well, I think that's the theme. I was reading somewhere that the theme was employment focus on 2014.
Well, I'm not sure about that. Every year in all our programs, job creation is one of the focus, the thematic areas that cut across all our programs. So every year, next year, not excepting next year, we expect that our programs, put together will generate and stimulate employment, through the private sector development. But it is premature to just conclude that we are just focusing on job creation for next year.
Patrick, in 1 minute, would the Ministry of Finance push whatever industry to make sure that their national identification is done to help you broaden your tax net, because then you can identify people. Would you push that agenda in 1 minute?
Well, I think we are beginning to drift towards areas that are not directly related to our program-based budgeting topic.
But it helps, it helps you with your budget.
Expansion of the tax net is one that has been, that runs through our revenue generation efforts, and we are not stopping that.
But would you push that agenda?
No, that agenda is being pushed already. You see, when it comes to revenue generation, there's always the efficiency factor that needs to be considered. Yes, so we'll push that agenda, but not through only one mechanism. We push it on a number of fronts to ensure that we stimulate the economy, and then revenue also increases for government to be able to carry out the programs that we set out to carry out.
Last year, one of the things that disappointed us was revenue from gold, revenue from oil. Going into next year, have we made all provisions for things that may drop and not drop so that we are not disappointed again?
Yes, we are working out our forecast. And as you rightly said, some of these factors are from external sources that you don't really have full control over. What we do is to manage the risk associated with our commodities and on our mining sector. So that when these fluctuations occur, they don't affect us too much. But you can't rule out the effect of prices on the international market. You can't rule out the effect of prices on the international market on our revenues completely.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I wish we had more time to talk so we can talk about cutting expenditure, but I will try and get you one day that you're less busy. I know you're very tight, so we come in the studio and then we'll discuss further. But thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Oh, well, he's hopeful that going into next year, they would minimize or reduce the mistakes that they did or that we have been doing as part of our culture.
Yeah, I heard him rightly. And basically, the budget has to focus on priorities. Okay, we need to set our priorities right. Okay, we need to make sure that we place our hands on the very thing that we need in order to be able to live within our budget. Okay, and then looking at the data and its relation to the figures that we actually put in the budget and how arbitrary are these figures and the data that we have on the ground. Okay. I think that's something that we have to look at as a country, okay? Because the figures in the budget has to really match what is actually going to happen on the ground in the period under review, okay? So first, we must set our priorities right. As he rightly said, I heard him speak on setting the priorities right. There's definitely going to be the room for errors, okay? But as to what is the extent of the error, okay? Is that error which is so dangerous for our very existence? Or is that error that we can manage?
But see, Paul, I didn't get a sense of urgency in the data from you. Also, it's not perfect, but I didn't get that sense. But I think it all boils down to data.
Yeah, it all boils down to data. Actually, you were looking at the data or access to information of people, and then relating to the tax as a means of financing our budget.
In health, in fishing. If you don't have the data, how much money are you putting in?
You cannot really put your hands on the right figures at the end of the day. Okay, that is why it's so crucial for us to really factor that data collection and data figures together with the budget figures. Because if you don't do that, we cannot really get the right figures for the budget.
Paul, thank you very much. That's Paul Frimpong, economics policy analyst, and he's with Economic Business Group Africa. And Patrick Numo joined us on the phone. He's the Director for Budget of Ministry of Finance. My name is Nana Ansakwa. Tomorrow, Thursday, at 2 p.m. after the news on Joy FM 99.7. Tune in and listen to a show I call That's My Opinion. It's very exciting. And as I say, tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again. We're talking to Honorable Kojo Yanka. His life story, his Pan-Africanism, very exciting.